Gentleman from Iowa, Mr. King, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Attorney General Holder, for coming here to testify. A number of questions that come to mind as I listen to the responses that are here, and they sort down to this. As near as I can determine, have you identified the weapon that actually killed Agent Terry?
That would go into a ballistics report determination, and I'm not prepared to talk about that given that it's a pending case.
It's still under investigation, but there's some data there that is being examined by justice?
There are, as I said, there is an ongoing investigation. There's a case that has been indicted, and obviously a part of that trial will be the ballistics report.
Have you identified a suspect or a person of interest?
Somebody has been indicted in connection with that case.
Somebody has been. And that's not information that you can speak to today?
Okay, there are some rules there that don't allow me to do it. Apparently this is a matter that is under seal.
So but there has been an indictment.
Yes, there has been an indictment.
Thank you. And if you were to tell us who that was, you couldn't do so in this setting?
That's correct.
If we were in an executive session, could you do that?
I don't think so. I think it is a court-ordered seal.
Okay, that's satisfactory to me.
We'd have to seek leave of the court in order to do that.
That's satisfactory. Thank you. Do you have a sense or an estimate or data on the numbers of Mexicans that have been killed, or homicides, that investigations that have brought about deaths where there have been weapons used that are from Fast and Furious in Mexico? We lost Agent Terry. How many Mexicans do you estimate have died because of the weapons that have been sent to Mexico?
I don't know that figure, Congressman King, but I fear that the number of people on the Mexican side of the border, frankly, as well on the United States of the border, who will be negatively impacted by the mistakes of Fast and Furious are going to be people who are going to be harmed. I don't have any numbers, but I fear that is what is going to happen, has probably already happened, and is likely to happen in the future.
Do you have, though, reports or data that would give you some sense of that? Is it a report that's delivered to you in your briefing that when we know all about we know about Agent Terry, but I'm thinking about this from a public relations standpoint. I'm thinking that if this happened in the United States, and I'm going to guess that there are multiple deaths in Mexico, if there's anything proportional to the distribution of the weapons, are there any reports that give you a sense of this happening? Is the communication going back and forth across the border and identifying Fast and Furious weapons that may have been used in crimes and homicides in Mexico, so that you have a sense of that number?
I don't have a sense of that as yet. I mean, we certainly work with our Mexican partners to try to trace guns that are seized in connection with crimes. That's why I said, we've traced 64,000 of those guns over the last 5 years. My guess will be that we will trace some guns over the coming years and months back to Fast and Furious, and then we'll be able to connect those traced weapons to crimes that have occurred in Mexico. But to date, I have not received information like that.
Well, thank you. I'd like to just shift a little bit. I know the last time you were before this committee, May 3rd of this year, as I recall, we had a discussion about the Pigford Farms issue, and I submitted a series of questions to about that, and you've answered most of those questions in writing as of a date, I think it was October of this year. And so I'd like to narrow in on that a little bit, because of the Pigford Farms issue, you cite as the authority for justice and presumably USDA to negotiate with black farmers, the authority that's in the Farm Bill, commonly known as the Farm Bill, and you cite the sections of the bill. And I will just tell you in this committee that I had a conversation with the then chairman of the Ag Committee, Colin Peterson, on the way over to the floor to vote on this Farm Bill, and I said to him, the authorization that you've granted in the Farm Bill, which you cite in your response, will open up the door to $1.3 billion in additional Pigford claims. And his response to me was, no, that $100 million caps the spending on settling all outstanding Pigford claims. You will be satisfied with the results of that. That was our disagreement. And I've had the Secretary of Agriculture cite the same section that you have cited. I have this section before me, and I'll ask unanimous consent to introduce it into the record at the conclusion. But it says here that shall not exceed $100 million, and it shall be construed to effectuate its remedial purpose of giving a full determination on the merits of each Pigford claim previously denied that determination, which is the language that opened up Pigford 2. So I'll submit that the authority only exists to resolve all outstanding Pigford claims and cap them within $100 million. And we got a claim coming back to Congress for an additional $1.15 billion. And I have, I have no information in my letter that tells me how many claims you have from Pigford, and I don't have any information that tells me what was spent on attorney fees in the settlements of Pigford 1. So I'd appreciate if you could respond to that.
Sure, we'll get you that information.
And including the value, the cost to attorney fees in Pigford 1, and anything that's current.
Whatever information we have with regard to the questions you've asked, I'll make sure that we get passed on to you.
And I would just ask then in follow-up, have you had
time has expired.
If I'd ask unanimous consent to complete my question?
The gentleman continues to be recognized for a final question, and then the AG to respond.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would just ask that we know that there were negotiations, according to your letter, that took place between the Department of Justice, the USDA, and representatives of the black farmers, which sounds to me in their response to be multiple organizations, multiple entities. So I would ask you if you personally had a conversation with Secretary Vilsack with regard to Pigford, and who are those entities that were negotiated with to come to this settlement that I contend goes beyond the $100 million cap that was authorized.
Well, I have certainly talked about this matter with Secretary Vilsack, the person who's primarily responsible for the settlement of the case on the Justice Department side is the Associate Attorney General Tom Pirelli. There were a variety of organizations, entities, individuals who were engaged in this. I mean, we were trying to work out a settlement short of litigation, so people who were potential plaintiffs were part of these conversations to reach this agreement.
Thank you, Mr. King.
Thank you.
The
General,
gentleman from